One of the things that I've been contemplating deeply this past month is mastery over time. Time can either be a great ally or a relentless adversary. Although it may be a construct of the mind, harnessing its powers demands a certain level of mastery over oneself. You might know that Kronos in Greek mythology represents the father time and carries with him a scythe, symbolizing death. My mission is to kill time, and time's mission is to kill me. Kronos represents external time, night and day, weeks, months, and years. Then there is Kairos, carrying a weighing scale, representing the balance between opportunity and risk. Kairos represents internal time, the subjective clock that tells us the right time to do something or to proceed with caution. From the subjective lens of Kairos, the past and the future are just mere concepts of the mind. Yet the linearity of time, which is Kronos, governs all animate existence. Trees grow and wither. Human lives march inevitably toward their mortal end. Time affects the flesh and blood. But for those who walk the path of mastery, time is not an enemy, it is an ally. They devote their waking hours to refining this relationship, channeling it towards self-understanding and the pursuit of wisdom. Now, for those who do not walk this path, time often appears as a ruthless destroyer, a force of decay that erodes everything in its wake. Yet, perhaps one of the most elegant perspective on time was given by one of the most mystical fictional characters, Gandalf the Grey, and he said, "A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to." Human lives have been shaped for several thousand years by the evolution of clocks, and especially the last 500 years by mechanical clocks, which has greatly transformed our existence. One of the best talks on this subject that I have heard is called Programmable Reality by Venkatesh Rao, which is also the inspiration for this video. And he talks about the evolution of how humanity went from Kronos culture to Kairos culture. How we went from appointment television, the first RCA television where life was kind of scheduled around it, like the local gathering in a community to watch the Sunday special, to the modern on-demand television like Netflix, where TV does not dictate our mood, but our mood dictates the TV. We went from interrupting each other through the use of telephones, which engineers refer to as hard synchronized real time, to its subtler evolution of texting, which can be seen as soft synchronized real time. This evolution suggests that we are moving from external objective interpretation of time, the way clocks operate, to internal subjective interpretation of time, basically from Kronos to Kairos. Now, going back to Gandalf, my apologies, his mastery over time is not dictated by the whims and expectations of others, but by a profound understanding of time itself.
A wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
His famous words are not an excuse for tardiness. Rather, they reflect an impeccable sense of timing. Throughout his journey, he demonstrates this mastery, battling the Balrog, knowing precisely when to fight, when to withdraw, and even foreseeing his own return. True mastery of time is kind of like magic, and only those who actively cultivate it can harness its power. But how can we expect to master time when we haven't even answered the most fundamental question, which is, when did we ever get on the clock in the first place? Now, to ask this question is to embark on a life quest. But we can somewhat arbitrarily point through works of literature. The quintessential examples of literary works that feature time travel, you could say, are obviously The Time Machine by H.G. Wells and Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. One could say that Virginia Woolf invented time travel in the subjective sense, or non-linear time, through the use of literary technique known as stream of consciousness writing. While on the other hand, H.G. Wells invented external time travel, or linear time travel. Virginia Woolf popularized the literary technique known as stream of consciousness, which in a philosophical sense was literal subjective time travel. Now, in this style of writing, the writer aims to depict the raw internal monologue of the character and tries to capture how we actually perceive time, not in a linear fashion, but in a very haphazard and chaotic manner. In her work, Mrs. Dalloway, we can find the earliest reference of a clock in a literary piece of work. The Big Ben, as we know it, punctuates and interferes into the subjective lives of her characters. For having lived in Westminster, how many years now? Over 20. One feels even in the midst of the traffic or waking at night, Clarissa was positive. A particular hush, a solemnity, an indescribable pause, a suspense. But that might be her heart, affected, they said, by influenza, before Big Ben strikes. There, out it boomed, first a warning, musical, then the hour, irrevocable. This was around the 1910s when we had city-sized clock towers called the Big Ben, which violently rang and interrupted everybody's lives. Then we had railroad time in 1918, the first continent-scale standardized time. By 1930s, we had grid-synced electric clock time. For the first time in human history, we had gone from mechanical clock towers to producing time in one location and distributing it through grids that were piped into people's homes like water and electricity. By the 1980s, we started using GPS, and we use it to the current day. The time on our phone is synced to a cell phone tower, and these cell phone towers are synced to GPS satellites. There are 32 GPS satellites in space, each carrying a rubidium atomic clock. We're living in a cage of time made of 32 satellites orbiting the Earth. But now we are slowly escaping externalized time. We're living in a multiverse of subjective realities enmeshed together, moving from temporality, a linear notion of time, to multi-temporality, a divergent notion of time. The intermediate state that we are currently living in can be understood as atemporality, a disorienting Dionysian soup if we do not use our creativity to program our own subjective realities. If we don't do this, we subject ourselves to the brutality of time. Something that was really helpful in soothing this nauseousness of the present moment has been the Japanese concept of yutori, which translates roughly to a sense of spaciousness or having room to breathe. In the context of time, it refers to arriving early, not out of necessity, but to allow yourself a moment of calm before an event, to ease into an experience rather than rush into it. John Boyd was a maverick fighter pilot and a strategic thinker, and also the mind behind OODA loop, which is a decision-making framework in really high-stress situations. And his entire philosophy, which is based on time advantage, could be summed up as either you create time or you get consumed by it. According to John Boyd, if you don't create time, time pressure builds, you make mistakes, imagination starts to fail, your luck turns bad, appetite for risk starts to collapse, fear forces an unsafe retreat, your OODA loop collapses, there is a feeling of certain doom. This is Zimblanity. Whereas if you do create time, time advantage accumulates. You make inspired moves, imagination starts to compound, your luck turns good, appetite for risk starts to increase, confidence fuels a bold advance. You seize the initiative, feeling of unstoppable power. Now this is serendipity. For the vast majority of my life, I have always been the opposite of punctual. As a student, I was always chronically late, chasing time rather than mastering it. But as I grow older, and perhaps even a little bit wiser, I see the importance of slowing down, the refusal to rush, simply absorbing your surroundings. But even if we cultivate this state of awareness, there is another skill that is required, which is the ability to be unfazed, to not be shattered by shifting circumstances. And there is a Latin phrase for this, which is nil admirari, which means to be astonished by nothing. You see, nature has an uncanny ability to shatter all our illusions of control, all our illusions of perfection. There will be turbulent moments, there will be turbulent times that will shift your inner spaciousness, and you might cave in sometimes, and you might give in to certain influences from the external world. These moments are precisely when you develop your mastery over time. As we've already seen that we live in a multiverse of subjective realities, and other people's agendas can get into your way, and unexpected circumstances might shake you off your well-designed path. It is precisely in these moments of turbulence that we refine our abilities, learning to move with the rhythm of life rather than against it. By listening to our inner wisdom, we develop a personal sense of time, one that is both disciplined and fluid. Time will eventually return us to its womb, but until that day arrives, we must learn to sail without drowning. As they say, until the finality of death arrives, all defeat is purely psychological. Consider your favorite films. When they arrive in theaters, they feel like an experience meant to be savored. Yet the best ones take years to create, shaped in solitude long before they reach an audience. Movies are made when nobody is watching. Creating anything of real value is like navigating a swamp with murky waters. You must tread carefully, mindful of each step, resisting the urge to hurry. Patience isn't just a virtue in this journey, it's a necessity. That's why I believe patience and the art of perfect timing are two sides of the same coin. Patience isn't just essential for mastering a skill, it's equally crucial in execution. The right rhythm, tempo, and balance between holding back and pushing forward define all forms of worldly wisdom. I want to close this self-proclaimed TED Talk with a quote by Ursula Le Guin. The search for pleasure is circular, repetitive, atemporal. It comes to the end and has to start over. It is not a journey in return, but a closed cycle, a locked room, a cell. Outside the locked room is the landscape of time, in which the spirit may, with luck and courage, construct the fragile, makeshift, improbable roads and cities of fidelity, a landscape inhabitable by human beings.